Welcome to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It's your Wednesday night uncensored, unfiltered, and unafraid sports show. You still up? This episode of Buffalo After Dark starts now.
From Horns and Hooves Entertainment, this is breaking news.
Welcome to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It is Wednesday night, October 5th, and we're going to start out with some breaking news. But before we get to that, Bob, actually, we've got one more show before our nice little trip before we actually walk on the field at Arrowhead.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait for that trip. I mean, it's going to be so exciting. I mean, and plus, it's going to be a life-changing experience for all of us. You know, me, my wife, Brittany, you, and Sean, the four of us are going to Kansas City next week, and we're going to be able to step onto the field and Arrowhead Stadium. So that's going to be fun. And, of course, go to St. Louis and go to the Bills-Chiefs game and stuff like that. It's going to be fun. I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to it. It was 5 months in the making. And the fun thing is even with the trip, I mean, we're still going to show some video and different things when we're there. So, absolutely stay tuned for that. We're going to have some fun.
Basically like a vlog. We're going to make like a mini movie about our trip.
We're looking forward to everything, and we know you're going to be joining us for it too. But in the meantime, let's get to some breaking news, and we'll of course do some call-ins in a little bit. But the first thing that happened today, two big things coming out of the Bills. Well, actually, one of them's a former player, but Cole Beasley, 2 games in with the Tampa Bay Bucks, he decided to retire.
Yeah, I think it's more of the fact that he's been having a hard time just fitting into the Bucs system because they were really thin at wide receiver at the time. But I guess since they brought back Julio Jones, things have just kind of gotten better for them. So, I mean, as far as like playing wise, it hasn't gotten better. But as far as in the depth position of the wide receiver area, I think it's gotten better. So there was probably almost little to no use of using Cole Beasley at that point. So then on top of that, other teams probably are like, you know what, he's kind of washed up at this point. So he decided to retire. And he also mentioned that basically it's hard to be both a football player and a dad while on the road all the time. So he wants to spend more time with his kids, which is understandable.
Yeah, and he did a lot for the Bills when he was here. I mean, he ends up ending his career after 11 seasons. So, I mean, good luck to Cole Beasley, whatever he decides to do in the future. But it was just one of those quick things we ended up hearing about a little bit earlier. But then there was another story that ended up coming out this afternoon. And Andy, we'll get to you right in a moment. But the Bills ended up deciding to part ways with Tavon Austin. And Tavon Austin was not happy with the amount of playing time he was getting.
I think he kind of knew that his time wasn't coming in Buffalo, and yet the way the Bills raved about him, saying, oh, he's a hard worker, doing this, doing that. It's almost like they gave him an empty promise. But then again, there was no room for him. So the only time they ever used him was to be as a decoy at practice to pretend to be Lamar Jackson. And it worked. And so they beat the Ravens, so they let him go.
Yep. Plenty said. So with that being said, those were the two big breaking news stories of the day. But let's bring in Andy here. And it's been a while since we've had you on here. How you doing, mate?
Andy.
Good. Just recovering from surgery,
Yeah. How you feeling?
I'm all right. Slowly getting there.
That's a start.
Yeah. Well, good to hear that. Yeah.
What were you going to say, Andy?
I said some fun news about Tavon getting released today. Kind of.
Yeah, we were just finishing up talking about him.
Yeah, I mean, I just seen who they brought in. Some kid from he played for Wake Forest. I saw a couple of clips of him. He looks pretty decent, but he'll be on the practice squad. I think his name is Jamil Robertson.
Yeah, or something like that. Something with a J. I think it's Jarquil Robinson.
Yeah, it could be Jaquil Robertson. Saw some clips. He looked pretty decent for what I saw. So, he got the OBJ talk going. So, I mean, from what Vaughn said today, I think he might be a lock once he's fully healthy.
We'll see come November.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. So So with that, what we'll do is we're going to get on to a couple other things here with the show today. But if you want to jump on, 929-205-6099 gets you on the air. We'll be here until about 9 o'clock. And, of course, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Bills. And this was actually a game that they needed to be able to do. And that is, for the first time in 7 games, they actually finally came back from behind in a close game, and they actually won it. So what I want to do is let's go ahead and break it down. And, of course, final score was 23-20. First half, they get absolutely manhandled by the defense. And the second half, it was a totally different story. It's like something clicked because at the end of the game, Josh Allen engineered that drive, ran down the clock to 2 seconds, and basically from that point, Tyler Bass nails a field goal. So, Bobby, your thoughts first on what we ended up seeing.
Oh, where do I begin with that game? The first half, it almost made me want to pounce my head to a wall. That's number one. When it was 20-3, it's not like I said, "Oh, I give up, done, screw this, whatever." But in the back of my mind, I kind of knew at some point the Bills were going to come back. I didn't know how they were going to do it, but somehow they were going to do it. And sure enough, they pulled off the impossible. And they came back and they beat the Ravens. And they had a terrible first half, which is probably the most forgettable of so far this year. And then the second half, they kind of just clicked, like you just mentioned. And something inside them just kind of just went off. And they kind of just used that to their leverage. And it took out all their frustration on the Ravens from the Miami game the week before. And now they shut out the Ravens in the entire second half. And all Ravens fans and all of Baltimore want John Harbaugh dead because of what they just did on Sunday.
It's absolutely crazy because we knew that Baltimore's defense was going to be good. We knew that they have a dual threat in Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson had a pretty good game with his rushing yardage. But the second half, it seemed like they changed the plan to where they wanted to box him in, force him to throw, and that's where we saw that Lamar is not that great of a throwing quarterback.
No, far from it. Andy, what about you? What do you think?
Another game battling the elements. A week before you're fighting heat, the next week you're playing with rain and wind swirling around, from a hurricane. So they got tested the first half. It's kind of shocking to see them go down that much. But, those turnovers early cost them early. And just before the half, the defense woke up and found ways to stop Lamar. They were getting good pressure. I was kind of shocked at that. They were actually getting through with their defensive tackles that you don't really know too much about, besides Settle and Taquan. But, you had others in the mix. Everyone was, it's tough to contain Lamar. They did a very good job of that, towards the end of the first half. And, getting that touchdown before the half was crucial to keep them in this game. And, they didn't blink. You hear Von Miller over and over, don't blink.
Yeah.
And they didn't blink, that whole second half. That was just tremendous effort. All the way down to the end. They battled hard. And then that's what you like to see. Forget the stupid narrative of they can't finish games. The question really is the Ravens and why can't they stop anyone in the second half? That's the big question to me, not the Bills.
Right.
But I'm proud of them getting the win. They did an excellent job finally of some good clock management towards the end to get the win. So, and the big controversies with Harbaugh and his, 4th and 2 call,
Yeah, I'm actually glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that.
They thought that they were gonna either get a touchdown, if not, they were gonna pin them at the 2 or 3 or wherever they were, and force them to go 98 yards. Well, like Josh Allen said, that ball hawk of Poyer, running across and getting that interception. Really, it helped them, starting at the 20. So,
yeah, and Poyer is having a strong season. I mean, 2
Absolutely.
on the day. I mean, he's just eating it alive at this point. And then, of course, I mean, it was fun to see Peters just blowing up at Harbaugh on the sideline at the end of the game.
Yeah, I actually saw a comment that John Harbaugh made during his press conference on Sunday, and I watched it over and over again just in case I was tone deaf. And apparently, the reasoning why he went for it on 4th and 2 instead of doing what any common sense coach would do, which is kick a field goal and go up by 3 and make it harder on the opposing team to make a comeback, is simply because of one word: analytics. That was the key word that John Harbaugh used in his press conference on Sunday after they lost to the Bills. And he said, everything we did was based off analytics. I'm like, John, this is not an analytical league. This isn't the NHL. This is more of trying to find a way to win the game. When you use analytics, you basically look like a jackass. And that's exactly what John Harbaugh did. And plus, that's also what happens when you have a feud with Wink Martindale, who's the D coordinator for the Giants now. You replace him with some douchebag named Michael McDonald. I believe that's his name. And you blow 2 home games. And I think if I read it correctly, the Ravens currently have the longest losing streak at home in the NFL, with the most right now at 5, dating back to last season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, another good point, because you have to figure Martindale, I mean, he's actually turned the Giants around ever since he ended up jumping ship and joining Brian Daboll down in New York City. But, I mean, a Wink Martindale team with that roster, I'm thinking it's a different story.
There has to be. Because Brian Daboll has always been an offensive-minded coach, and it's very clear and evident with the Giants. And I said it since they hired him. I said, if they pull the right, cards, they're going to be a good team this year. And their first big test is coming up on Sunday against the Packers. Then they play the Ravens. So it's going to be a test to see if the Giants are for real or not. Because if they lose to those 2 teams and win at least one of them, they have a decent shot to make the playoffs. But again, the Giants, they got a long way to go before we can call them Super Bowl contenders or a playoff contender. They have to prove themselves more. We have to see more of the Giants from Brian Daboll and see what he can do. Because as of right now, I'm not really that thrilled with them beating Carolina or Tennessee, for that matter, even Chicago. The only tough opponent they played thus far is Dallas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and Baltimore doesn't even have that strong of a schedule in the first part of the season. So the fact that they're dropping the game like they did this past Sunday, I mean, that's something. The way that Baltimore went into it, realistically at halftime, I was thinking they were going to win it. And us getting that touchdown and bring it to 20-10 at halftime, that was a huge momentum changer, because I'm thinking if it was 20-3 like it had been, we're 2-2.
Well, I would have said right there that was, I think a lot of people jumped the gun, because every fan base has bandwagon fans, and the Bills have claimed a good handful of them in the last couple of years. I think those people who gave up on the Bills too easily, they're not real fans. I said to myself that, they're down 20-3. They got plenty of time to come back, and all they have to do is to shut down Lamar, because they had no blockage going on for the run game. They couldn't stop Lamar Jackson. They couldn't stop J.K. Dobbins. So now, because of that game, and with all the injuries on the defensive tackle position, it kind of became thin after a while. But the nice thing about the whole situation coming up is that Jordan Phillips could likely come back for the Steeler game. And Ed Oliver, I think, is becoming injury prone to the point where his ankle, he hasn't played football in a month. And this guy has an ankle injury. There is something seriously wrong with him.
Right. And then the news is now Trey White's going to come off the PUP list, but he is likely not going to be ready to go for this Sunday.
I mean, it's better to just not rush him at all, if I'm being completely honest. And plus, the bye is in 2 weeks.
Right.
So why rush it? It's like, you don't want to risk injury. And then all of a sudden, Trey White comes back, and he's right there. You want to have a healthy trade if he's right, especially down the road, down the stretch, when they could use him in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'd rather have him come back healthy. But the good thing is, I mean, at least with Elam, I mean, we have a good cornerback that's already in there. And then, of course, once Benford comes back after his injury, we'll be in good shape there. But again, a lot of good things that we did see, and that was a good test for the Bills, because you're going to have games that are going to be that close at the end. And the fact that we were able to grind it out and get that ugly win, I mean, and Josh Allen even said it in his post-game locker room speech. He doesn't care if it's by 1 or 100. You got to grind it out and get those wins. And I think one of the big turning points also, in addition to that touchdown we had right before halftime, That pick in the end zone sealed the deal.
Absolutely. And once they knew that, I said, game over. Because I knew Baltimore screwed up. So as soon as Jordan Poyer had one of the 2 interceptions in the end of the game, and this is what I was talking about. You have Lamar Jackson and J.K. Dobbins and Mark Andrews. Jackson could have easily ran in for a touchdown, but instead he was being pressured, and it forced him to make a mistake. And when you force him to make a mistake, shit comes down a spiral for Baltimore, and it's been proven. They were up by 35-plus points against the Miami Dolphins a couple of weeks ago, and then they blew that game. Now they blew this game. And Ravens fans were like, dude, this is insane. Their defense is not what it used to be, and Lamar Jackson is overrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we saw it again. He can't throw when he's contained in the pocket. I mean, it was very clear, and just the way that Lamar was throwing, it just wasn't conducive to hitting any long receivers or anything of that sort. He does not have that touch on the ball like a Josh Allen would have, or a Mahomes would have, or anything. And everyone's wondering, well, Baltimore, just pay him already. He's not worth Mahomes' money. He's not worth Josh Allen money.
He doesn't even have an arm, so what makes him think that he deserves more than that?
And
I would not be
he's
surprised.
Definitely not worth Kyler Murray money, and Kyler Murray's not even worth his own money.
At least Kyler Murray can throw a football, unlike Lamar.
True.
So I'll say that.
True, but yeah, it's same thing. Lamar's not worth it. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him at the end of the season, especially if Baltimore decides not to, give him the big money he's looking for. And Lamar's got to realize, I mean, now he's serving as his own agent, which, I mean, probably if he had a real agent, they'd be telling him, it's like, you're not going to be getting all this money that you think you're going to get.
He's delusional.
Mm-hmm.
He's delusional. And he's going to use his MVP season as leverage.
Right. But the problem is, that was literally his first season. He's been in the league, 5 years now?
This is year number 5. And he blew up in the second year. Because that was during the 2019 playoffs. That was when the Bills lost to the Texans in overtime in the playoffs. That same year was when the Ravens had a home game against Tennessee, and they blew it.
Yeah. And bottom line is, the quarterback should not be running for over 100 yards a game, and Lamar's been doing that.
He won a playoff game. So why should...
Because he's a dual threat still. He's still up there. He's still upper echelon. But he's not going to get that money. He's going to, well, at least to me, he should get probably less than what Kyler got, what Josh got. But he's up there. He could throw the ball decently, but it's not explosive like, your Josh and your Pat. I mean, he's got good receivers. He's got Mark Andrews. It's about the yards after, the yak. What those guys do for him. Those speedsters, Bateman, turning stuff into big plays. And you're right. He shouldn't be running for 100 yards, but that's just his makeup. That's just who he is, and it's the same thing that goes for Josh Allen. That's who he is. He's not going to really slide. He's going to take you on. He's going to bull rush you, and that's just who they are. He's a good quarterback. I'm not going to lie. He's a dual threat like Josh, but not really to Josh's level in the passing game.
Right.
No, Josh Allen is more a mobile quarterback, and he can throw. And every coach in every press conference has always said it's impossible to stop him because you don't know what he's going to do. You don't know if he's going to run. You don't know if he's going to throw. You don't know what the hell he's going to do. And I love compliments like that because it pretty much says he's too good and we have no idea what he's capable of.
It's the same thing goes with Patrick Mahomes. He does it just as good as Pat. Those two are two in the same. Really when we play the Chiefs, it's like playing another Josh. And, it's just who's going to come out on top. Is it going to be Pat or is it going to be Josh? And, every year it's, I like having these in-season views of, going up against Patrick because it still tells you where you are matched up, against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So, I'm looking forward to that in 2 weeks. So that's just where I stand with how Lamar, kind of goes with everybody else in the league.
Right. So we'll see what happens because honestly, as good as Patty Mahomes is, I think he's almost up there in arm strength as Josh, but I don't know if he could break tackles like Josh or do any of the things like Josh does. Josh can do almost anything. Lamar Jackson is just a modern Michael Vick. That's all he is. That's all he's ever useful for. He doesn't have the greatest arm in the world, but he can definitely run. And guess what? Give it 3 or 4 years, and I guarantee you Lamar Jackson's body is going to start to deteriorate.
Well, it's a good comparison with Michael Vick because that's exactly what happened to him before he ended up getting thrown in jail for dogfighting.
I remember that.
Well, that's a pretty fair comparison, I think. I think he may be a tad better than Mike Vick, but it's in that range, without question, I think.
Yeah,
And, people are just praise him and the Ravens because it's just what he does.
right,
My day, Mike Vick. They loved him then when he ran the ball around.
right. I guess here's a good question if we're going to compare him to Mike Vick. Who had the better arm, Vick or Jackson?
I have to go back and watch.
What's that noise in the background?
Not sure what
Hey.
that noise is.
Probably Andy has TV in the background.
No, I don't have my TV on.
That's probably Tom then.
Oh, mine's muted.
Okay, so I don't know what that's all about, but anyway,
No, sorry.
it's all good. But anyway, so what I was saying Michael Vick though. I would say between Jackson and Vick for who had the better arm, I could definitely say Michael Vick. That's what I think, because Michael Vick was able to throw and run at the same time. He was a dual threat QB. He was fast. He was electrifying. That's what Michael Vick was good at. Compared to what Lamar Jackson is doing nowadays, he's too scared to consistently throw the ball because he knows he can't throw. So the only thing he can do is rely on his legs. And I think that's something the Baltimore Ravens have to really consider looking at is he worth the Mahomes and Allen money to pay him what he wants just for him to run around like that? Because again, if they pay him what he wants, he's going to deteriorate in 3 or 4 years and he's going to be useless.
Right. Well, it'll also hurt them with salary cap too. But then Baltimore on their side of the ball, I mean, they have Dobbins, and he was getting some good runs early in the game, and yet it almost makes me wonder with Jackson having the ability to run like he does. Okay, that's great, but it almost makes me question Baltimore's run game if it's really going to Dobbins and Lamar Jackson.
Are you really surprised? Because Greg Roman is the offensive coordinator.
Well, no, and look what happened when Roman was here.
Well, I was really excited about Roman when he came forward from the 49ers, and everyone was like, wow, he did so great with Colin Kaepernick, and he came to Buffalo and is turning to shit.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. But in either case, though, great win by the Bills. They needed to get that win after what happened in Miami. And, of course, if you guys want to jump on, 929-205-6099 will get you on. And we want to jump right into our next story, which is the Concussion Protocol, because there was some big fallout that happened earlier this week, and there's also a lot of questions that are coming up now in terms of the NFL Concussion Protocol. And as we all know, Tua was knocked out for part of our game when we played the Dolphins. He ended up getting cleared. He ends up returning into the game in the second half. And then what happens is when the Dolphins ended up playing Cincinnati that Thursday night, Tua gets drilled, and game over for him. He ends up going out on the stretcher, and on top of it, not only is the NFL Players Association investigating the whole concussion issue, and not only is Tua going to be interviewed by the NFL Players Association, but the independent neurologist that cleared Tua to return in our game is no longer employed.
Yeah, I'm going to let Andy go first because the dude's a doctor.
Yeah, it has been a whirlwind of events with Tua. I first saw him getting pushed down by Milan, hitting his head like he did, and doing the stinky leg, walk around. I thought he was done for that game. And when he came back in the second half, I was, what? How the hell did he clear concussion protocol in 15 to 20 minutes? I was literally flabbergasted by this. I was like, how is he couldn't walk straight. How is he cleared to even continue on playing? And, he did finish the game with the Bills, and I was still kind of real iffy about it still. And I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens on a short week going to Cincy. And like Tom said, he gets his ass dropped and gone off on a stretcher. I've talked to as many people in the medical field as I could about it, and they all agree. We all know he shouldn't have been playing, and until this whole thing comes out, I can't wait to hear what they say about this. I'm really intrigued.
Right.
I can't really say nothing else more about it because the investigation has to be concluded and whatever they say, but we all know we're not stupid. We've seen so many people get concussions in various leagues, and we all know he shouldn't have been playing in that game, but
right,
we'll go with it and see what happens.
Yeah, and the interesting part is that the Dolphins originally reported it as a head injury when it was our game. Then, of course, that tweet ends up going bye-bye, which, of course, people did manage to find the tweet after the fact, so there are screenshots of it still. Yeah. And on top of it, now Tua ends up coming out as like, oh, it was a back injury, it was a leg injury. And I'm like, okay, you get your bell rung that way, which I've had had that happen to me once, and it was like the same thing. It's like you're like going to be staggering all over the place because you don't know where you are when that happens. Then on top of it, I mean, me personally, the thing is, when it happened to me and you feel like your brain is shaking on the inside, there's something wrong. And for him to come back, now I will give Tua credit on this. As much as I don't like the guy, and as much as I absolutely can't stand the Miami Dolphins, I will give him credit. He wanted to keep on going, and he wanted to keep on playing for his team. I will give him credit on that because that's what a good leader will do. But at the same time, you got to know what your limits are on that. And I almost have to question what would have happened if Bridgewater would have stayed in the game and Tua did not come back. Because we all know Miami's been caught in some scandals recently, especially where they ended up losing draft picks. They got fined. We know Stephen Ross ended up getting suspended, and we know that there was a bunch of different things that happened, the whole collusion to try and get Tom Brady. I almost have to wonder because the head coach always has say in whether or not somebody goes back into a game or not, and even Jim Harbaugh ended up mentioning that. He said if something like that would have happened to Lamar Jackson, if he was cleared, he would have still not put him back in if he got his bell rung that bad. So it almost makes me wonder what Mike McDaniel was thinking. It's like, are we going to lose this game without Tua?
Well, here's where my argument comes in, because I haven't even said anything about it yet, but I would love to say something. And it's a bit of a controversial comment, but I'm just going to say it anyway. And that is, I have a theory, and I was talking to my wife about this, and we were talking when that game happened, when he got hit the first time and he was wobbling, we both said that dude's got a concussion. So we figured that. And then when we found out that he came out of concussion protocol 15 minutes later, first off, how are you able to come out of concussion protocol 15 minutes later and all of a sudden you play the game? And Dolphins fans will have the audacity to say, ha, you lost to a guy who had a concussion, which is scummy to begin with. But right. On top of all that, it makes me wonder, why did the Dolphins send him back out there? Is there some sort of agenda they're trying to prevail? Because there's a theory, I believe firmly behind the whole situation, and that is, there's two reasons I believe this all happened. Is number one, they knew damn well that if Tua Tagovailoa sat out for the rest of the second half against the Bills, they would have lost that game easily. That's number one. Number two, it also proves to me that as good of a coach Mike McDaniel has become so far with what he's been able to do with offensively with the Dolphins, it doesn't change the fact what Stephen Ross had something to say about this. And I know he's suspended and whatever, but that's not the point. The argument I have is when Brian Flores was the head coach of the Dolphins just last season, he preached about concussion safety protocols, and he talked about how players should not sit through playing these games with concussions because they can lead to some serious, life-threatening injuries like neurological brain damage, even CTE. Look at Antonio Brown. That dude's all kinds of fucked up.
Yeah, look at what happened to Junior Seau before he died.
Yeah, exactly. And Dave Durison had CTE. So the point is that Mike McDaniel, to me, is not brought in to the Miami Dolphins as a head coach. He was brought in by the Miami Dolphins to be the yes man to Stephen Ross, to solely convince the public to lie through the skin of his teeth about how they treated their players. Because Brian Flores, I actually liked as a head coach, even though I don't like either. I liked Brian Flores as a head coach. I thought he was the perfect coach for this team. I don't care if they have Mike McDaniel. I don't care if they have Tyreek Hill. That doesn't change anything for me about how I look at the Miami Dolphins. Brian Flores exposed so many things that was wrong with the team. When it came to tampering for Tom Brady or Sean Payton, when it came to concussion protocol safety, and now it's being blown back into their face because Mike McDaniel is lying through the skin of his teeth about the situation with Tua. And he's now saying, leading up to the Jet game, he said he's still in concussion protocol. We don't know when he's coming back. But what I think they should have done, and this is my theory of what they should have done, was put him on long-term injury reserve. And then would have ended the season right there. And the Dolphins, to me, are too determined and they're too spineless to acknowledge they were wrong. They were wrong about the whole situation, about having to play Tua. Because if they were actually cared about Tua's safety, they should have said, no, you're not going back out there.
Right.
And it's been proven that the Dolphins not once but twice got exposed. And it's not just on them. It's also on the NFL and the NFLPA and the player safety. This involves everybody.
It does. And especially when we ran 90 plays against them, I mean, on paper, you run 90 plays against a defense, you're winning like 100% of the time. So I kind of had similar thoughts about it in terms of where they knew they were going to lose. And I do think that it is a deeper issue, but it'll also be interesting now that the NFLPA and the NFL are actually making changes to the protocol. And one of the things that came out of it right off the bat is if anyone has any motor skill problems similar to what Tua had when he ended up stumbling in our game, and of course when he ended up basically having his hands frozen in gang symbols when he was laying on the field, that's an automatic, you're not coming back. So at least that came out of it. But I really want to see how deep this investigation goes, because of course we all know sometimes when you investigate yourself, there's not going to be any wrongdoing. So it really will be interesting to see what actually happened. And I would love to find out, how did that doctor clear somebody that should have never been cleared? I mean, here's a hot take. He got paid off.
Well, I think the NFL is paying off the Dolphins, period, or the Dolphins were paying off the NFL to say, shh, all right, we'll give you money, but let Tua go back in even if he has a concussion. I have a theory they're trying to kill him. I feel like they're trying to kill him on purpose.
I hope not. I hope not.
I hope not either. I hope not, because I'm looking at this more than just football. This is a human being, and you have a multi-million-dollar franchise in the National Football League. They're using you as their quarterback, but yet they don't care about you. So if Tua next time gets hurt down the road, why should he trust the team to take care of him?
Exactly. You know, and that's something that will come out, especially as we go further. But what we'll do is we're actually a little over the halfway point of our show tonight. So what we'll be back in 60 seconds, and we're going to talk about some NFL trade rumors, especially with the Bills. And we're also going to take a look at the Bills versus the Steelers. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome to Buffalo After Dark, everybody. It's your Wednesday night uncensored, unfiltered, and unafraid sports show.
No! No!
I think we had 2 top 5 moments.
Sam fucking Darnold. And he just kept whacking away. Next thing you know, hey, it's a goal.
You shut your fucking mouth. Do not do anything. We're not even episode 1.
Another month, same old at work.
That was a bad omen right off the bat. Yeah, I've drank a fifth out of it with no problem.
My best friend is a freaking Eagles fan.
Can't wait to crack this thing open tomorrow. First of all, let me crack this thing open. Cheers.
What?
I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I believe red, white, and blue. I will be buried in a red, white, and blue casket.
Saquon Barkley and the Buffalo Bills, and how it would make sense to have him come to us. So go ahead and let's get it on here. So Andy, any thoughts on what would happen if we were to pick up Barkley?
Oh, I would be so much happy if we have a run game, because I still think this is the missing part of this team winning a championship. You're going back to being one-dimensional. If these running backs don't start, putting in work, and I'm not saying Devin Singletary hasn't, but it hasn't been great. You're hoping more from Cook. I can really see this kid exploding if he can just catch the ball. I don't know if he's having a confidence issue or what going on right now, but if they did get a Saquon Barkley, I could only hope that piece would carry us over the top with teams like Kansas City and the upper echelon teams. This team needs a running game so bad. I'm not saying Josh can't run, but I mean they got to get this going. Yeah, I mean you're wasting your time with 3 running backs every week if your quarterback is going to be the leading rusher.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard the Bills are not very pleased with the run game in general. I mean, Singletary, I think he's a good number 2, but he's definitely not number 1. I mean, Zach Moss is fucking useless. They could just trade him to the Giants.
Right.
Because, I mean, that's what the Giants have been doing. They've been picking up every Buffalo Bills degenerate in the last few years since they got able to come over, or in the last couple of months, I should say. And, yeah, so I think that's what they should do. They should get Saquon Barkley because Boomer Esiason was on another show. I think he was on the Kay Adams show last weekend, and he basically said, if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I would be calling the Giants about Saquon Barkley. And there is the connection for the 2 franchises, with Joe Schoen being the GM for the Giants and then Brand being the GM of the Bills. I think that it would be nepotism at the same time, considering that they're doing a friendly team deal or whatever, a team-friendly deal, whatever it is you want to call it. And it really just comes down to what the asking price is. It could be a 2nd-round pick. It could be a 3rd-round pick. It could be a player in return for him. The price for Saquon Barkley is going to go through the roof if no other team is willing to pay for him. But at the same time, based on what they're doing, it's too early to judge what's going to happen with the Giants because they're 3-1. They got a big test coming up on Sunday against Green Bay. We're going to see what they're made of.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and joining us on the road, we got Julian J. Mafia, host of Mafia Talk.
How we doing, fellas, man? I'm all the way out in Getsville, man. I got a half hour back home, but still got to join the boys, man. How we feeling tonight?
Hey, doing good. You're in where? Getsville?
Yeah, I do cable, so I drive around everywhere hooking up. Cable,
Okay.
So
Gotcha. I was going to say, you're up in my neck of the woods. You're actually only probably 15 minutes from me.
Guys, what's up?
Not much, man. So we're in the second half of the show. We're talking about we did talk about the whole concussion issue earlier, but now what we're talking about is what would happen if the Bills are able to trade for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, man, I've been talking about that a lot throughout the week. Every show I jump on, I'm always active. I jumped on WGR to ask Nate Geary or Joe DiBiase. Yeah, nobody wants to wait on hold for a whole hour.
Right.
I mean, it's to the point where I would like to entertain that. I mean, Nate Geary did, he tweeted out saying towards trade deadline that his salary cap will drop down dramatically where we'll be able to afford it. He did, and putting the ball on the ground, I mean, look at the stats. He's one of the most frequent fumblers in the league since coming out, besides Derrick Henry and Evan Kamara, the stat was. And them 2 guys got double the amount of stats or double the amount of carries on Singletary. So, I mean, that's not good. I mean, James Cook, you look like you're not ready for an NFL, bro. I mean, I know everybody's saying he's who we need. We want that breakout speed. We want that catching out the backfield, but he does not look ready for the NFL right now. And, I mean, I'm nobody. I'm not a coach or anything like that, but what's the answer? Do we just keep force-feeding him and force him ready, or do we sit him out for this game and see what Duke Johnson can bring to the table? That's my question. I mean, he's chilling there. I would like to see him for a game at least and sit James Cook and just let him think about it. I mean, I don't know, or maybe you got to force-feed a guy, or maybe you just need to give the ball straight to Devin Singletary or Zach Moss for a game and let him take over a game instead of doing a 50-50 snap count type of thing. I don't know, man. There's a lot of questions when it comes to the running room. I'm getting tired of seeing Josh Allen, our number 1 rusher. No, we love it. We go crazy when we see Josh doing what he do best, but that's not sustainable. He can't keep taking them hits out forever.
Well, right.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the last thing we need is for his body to break down a lot quicker than anyone would ever want it. But I guess, like, the thing I look at, especially in the running game, now, Singletary, we can agree, he's definitely a good back to have. Is he the number one? I don't think he is. Now, same thing with Zach Moss. I'm not impressed with him, and he's been in the league a few years now. I'm not impressed with him, and I don't think he's that long-term answer. I mean, sure, can he get some short yardage gains? Absolutely. But I have yet to see him come into a game and dominate like a Dobbins would, or like any of the other premier running backs. Saquon Barkley has dominated games before.
Even a Tony Pollard, like, I mean,
Yeah.
him right behind Zeke, he's still doing phenomenal. So at
Right.
least we can get that out of him, man. Yeah, man, I agree.
Right, or even like a Derrick Henry. I mean, we know how he destroyed us a couple seasons ago when he ended up coming in the game and he ended up rushing for over 120. So we need to have that type of player. And I'm almost thinking if we can do something such as get a Saquon Barkley, and if I would say throw Moss in the mix and, trade him over to New York, I mean, he wouldn't be a bad pickup for them. And New York has a better run game altogether.
Right back with Dable, so Dable would take in either or with open arms. So I mean, I definitely would like to entertain the Saquon Barkley kind of more type of situation. That's kind of where I'm at right now, because I mean that run game, we don't need a dominant run game. We don't need 50-50 pass rush. We don't need that. We just need to relieve Josh of his rushing duties. We need the threat of the run, where we lined up in not necessarily like a 12-man formation, 2 tight ends, and have and motion in a receiver, and like, oh, let's stack up the box and look like the run and quick play action, and that's down the field. We just need the threat of rush, but I mean, nobody's really scared of Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, or James Cook. I mean, yeah, Singletary, he looks great a couple times, but shoot, they know if they can game tackle and rip that ball out, I mean, they know they could jump on it. So that's the biggest thing with Singletary.
Yeah. And it's just right now, I mean, that run game is just not strong like it should be. And to your point, we need to, give Josh Allen some relief in the run game, because he shouldn't have to do it all. Now, I love the fact he's willing to do it all, but he shouldn't have to do it all. And that's really the big difference. It kind of reminds me when Peyton Manning was in the league and he was playing for both Indy and he was playing for the Broncos. It was a pass-first offense. It was literally like an 80-20 offense, and we shouldn't have to rely on that. And same thing, and I will say, Dorsey did plan this game fairly well. I mean, he made the adjustments. He did what he needed to do in the second half. But I want to see more like what I saw in the preseason, where you can run the ball down somebody's throat and get a victory, 1 week. And if we need to throw it, we can throw it. It's just, I think we're getting to that point where we're just too much of a pass-reliant offense again.
Yeah, when you can send the pressure and the blitz that these past couple teams, especially Miami, and they tried. I mean, that's Tennessee tried, and the last game we had, they tried. But we're playing the Steelers this week. We're playing Pittsburgh, and they're a heavy blitzing team, and they know how to play the Bills, and they know how to play Josh.
Mm-hmm.
So I know T.J. Watt is out, and that's huge for us. That's huge.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, I would have said the book is out on Josh Allen, because I mean, shit, turn the page, and Josh Allen's going to show you.
Yeah, he'll write a whole new chapter before it's all said and done.
Man, a whole, whatever to call it, 10 chapters, 10 books, and all that. Josh's going to keep writing. But
right.
Josh Allen can't really do it all on his own. I mean, I love the stat. 100% whatever of him scoring touchdowns. He's 100% reliable for all our touchdowns. That's phenomenal, but I mean, we need to relieve duty. I mean, that's all, man. We need more from the backfield. Really. That's all it really comes down to. And we're down so many people. Every and everybody in Miami fans could talk all they want about that game.
We're over Miami, Julian.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Pittsburgh.
ankle. I mean,
And what we're going to do is we're going to jump ahead real quick, too, because I do want to cover one thing with Micah Hyde, and then we're going to jump into the Pittsburgh game that's coming up. But there was a little bit of talk that we may be looking to do a deal with the Minnesota Vikings to at least fill in for Micah Hyde for this season.
Yep, I heard about that. Nice.
Yeah, Harrison Smith is being brought up as the guy. I don't even know how much money he's making, and I don't know if he wants to leave Minnesota. I mean, as awkwardly mediocre as they are, it just kind of screams to me that the Bills are in desperate need to get a safety to fill in the role. But at the same time, why do you need to do it? You already have DeMar Hamlin, who played lights out against Miami. The dude literally took down Tyreek and put him under 35 yards. There's no fucking reason to go around and get desperate, because I feel like if you trade for Smith, you're getting desperate. I think that, I mean, unless they say, DeMar Hamlin's pretty good, but we're too quick to judge on him. All right, let's just go get someone with experience who's been mediocre for the last 4 years. I'm not saying that Smith is terrible, but is it worth the picks that you would be giving up in a trade for that guy?
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily is right now, especially since you already have your man on the practice squad. Bring him in, and that's what I would do. And we saw what he was able to do in Miami. And, I mean, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were basically non-factors in that game. So
Waddle had one getaway from that. One.
Right.
That's all it took.
Yeah. That's all it was. So we'll see what happens there. But jumping now to the Bills versus the Steelers, and this is going to be an interesting matchup because Pittsburgh right now is a disaster of a team, and we'll cover this over the next couple minutes. I mean, we only have about 10 minutes left in the show, but right now the big news that came out of Pittsburgh is that Kenny Pickett is going to be the starter the remainder of the season. So obviously Trubisky's not happy that he's on the bench again, but look at what happened. He didn't play well. He had a couple starts. He didn't play well. And Pickett came in, and yes, Pickett didn't had a few bad drives, but he actually put some energy back in that team, and he was actually turning things around. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Pickett can do. It will probably be a little bit tougher for us to game plan because of the fact that this is going to be his first full NFL start. But at the same time, there are things we can look at from when he played at Pitt. So
yeah, but I mean, when you look at Kenny Pickett, let's be honest, the guy had 3 interceptions against the goddamn Jets. That's not saying a lot.
Yeah, and the Jets ended up winning. So
if you have 3 interceptions against the fucking Jets, there is something severely wrong with you. And then Mike
tiny hands.
Tiny ass hands.
Yeah, smallest hands in the league.
That guy is fucked, dude. I'm telling you, he's fucked. And you're putting a baby in the middle of this game. You're throwing him to the wolves, and he's gonna get slaughtered. Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, just like Trevor Lawrence's first season with Jacksonville. Look at how he got slaughtered.
Well, it's Jacksonville, and he was the first overall pick, so that's a big difference.
True. But in a lot of ways, I mean, he ended up doing the baptism by fire. I mean, he got manhandled for his first season, and I mean, I can totally tell you one thing. I mean, the Jets, I mean, they're a crap team. They're not that good. But now it's like, hey, welcome to the NFL, Kenny Pickett. Now here's your first real test against an actual legit top 3 defense.
Maybe number 1, Darren.
I'm gonna say top 2, or we're not 2.
Right. You're going against a top defense. It's like, here you go. It's like, have at it.
It also doesn't help that.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, speaking about defense, man, shout out to Kai Earlham. I'm pretty sure you guys touched on that, but man, phenomenal job. These past couple games by our number 1 draft kid, Kai Earlham, man. Last game, 43 cover snaps, 1 target, no receptions, man. Previous game before that was like 3 targets, no receptions, or something like that. Man, he's looking phenomenal. Shout out to Kai Earlham, man. Having a hell of a first quarter of the season. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it'll be interesting to see what they do against the Steelers. I mean, honestly, I think what they're going to probably do is do a lot of man coverage, but I also would not be surprised. And I know we don't blitz a ton, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do that against Kenny Pickett just to try and rattle him a little bit, mix up the coverages a little bit.
But sorry for interrupting, Bobby. What was you saying?
What I was gonna say was before was like I was saying before, you're throwing a kid into the wolves, and no matter what the Steelers do, they're gonna be banged up in the secondary, and there's a very strong chance Minka Fitzpatrick doesn't play on Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And guess what? There's no TJ Watt either. If TJ Watt was there, I would be a little more concerned. But because he's not there, it's like whatever.
Right. I mean, TJ Watt's injury prone, just like his brother JJ Watt, and I'm actually surprised JJ Watt even came back to play this past week because I know there is that quick story, and then we're going to jump right into some hockey to end the show. But JJ Watt, first and foremost, I'm glad he's doing better than he was because he had a little bit of a heart issue. He ended up getting an ablation done where he ended up getting shocked, and then he was back on the field. So, I mean, that's a pretty nasty thing to have to deal with, and for him to be playing already, you know, hats off to him. I mean, and I've always liked JJ Watt anyways too. Actually, I've liked both of them, but you know, just a little side note on there. But to wrap up the show, what we're going to do is we're going to finish up with hockey tonight. And one of the big things that came out earlier this week, and Andy, you might be able to throw some info in on this. Anson Carter is getting with a group of investors, and he's trying to bring back the Atlanta Thrashers.
You know what? Good fucking luck, because I will say this right now. Atlanta is not a hockey market. They failed not once but twice. They had the Atlanta Flames moved from Atlanta to Calgary. And then just 10, 12 years ago, they moved the Thrashers to Winnipeg to become the Jets. So I don't know how Anson Carter is going to bring a 33rd team back to Atlanta. It's not a strong market. I mean, if you get a different ownership and it's committed to this team, yeah, I can see it happening. But at the same time, if you do Team 33, you have to do Team 34 and maybe 40 potentially. That's a lot of freaking names out there. I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll see. I mean, it's kind of like saying, you know, you want to build a rock band, but you don't have, you know, Slash as your guitarist.
Good comparison.
It's kind of like that. You're building. You ever see the movie School of Rock with Jack Black? That's this situation with Anson Carter. I'm going to build my own team, and I'm going to bang every one of you in the ass. That's pretty much what it is.
I mean, and hockey's failed in Atlanta twice now, so I just don't see it working. And then
I don't see it.
Yeah, and then the last two things we'll talk about, and actually Sean's not able to join us tonight, but this would have been a perfect topic for him. So the Seattle Kraken ended up releasing who their new mascot's going to be this past Saturday. And, of course, anyone who saw it, is Buoy the Troll. And when we put the version up on the show here with the actual graphics, you'll be able to see it, but it's just absolutely insane with what it is. And
what the hell is that stupid fucking thing's name?
Buoy the Troll.
Buoy the Troll, like a buoy like you put on top of a boat when you're landing.
Buoy the Troll.
Yeah.
How stupid is that?
Yeah, imagine telling somebody, "Hey, I got a buoy," and it's like, "Oh, a boy! Holy shit! These whack jobs use a small child to lure a monster from the sea as bait. Look at this! It looks like a severe fungus that you get out of your toes."
What the hell is that?
Buoy the Troll.
What the hell is that?
The same answer from throughout the hockey world.
Yo,
right.
What? That looks like Trolls and Gremlins got it on, and that's what the fuck came out.
Oh,
yeah, it's just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy, like how that happened. But yeah,
I could hear Sean's take on that.
Yeah, it's pretty damn ugly. I will say that.
That's
right.
funny.
That is the happiest looking mascot I've ever seen in my life.
Hey, I mean, I've seen worse. You ever see the New Orleans Pelicans mascot from like 10 years ago?
Oh.
Oh my god, that is the creepiest fucking thing you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it truly is.
Shout out to Brittany, though. Brittany's best mascot of all time.
Right. But
oh my god.
One of the worst looking mascots I've seen, but
They could have gone anywhere with this, and they decided to go with a troll. I mean, anywhere. We could have a goddamn octopus. Oh,
yeah, seriously.
yeah.
Whoever made that, we already know their favorite movie.
Right.
Yeah, and if it makes you feel better, Julian, the Seattle Kraken published a video that was pretty cringy on Twitter, and it goes with like 3 kids who are probably 8 to 11 years old, and it had a bunch of athletes all around the Seattle area, and one of the players they got was Seahawks running back DJ Dallas, and they were like, "Hey kids, here's your inspiration for a mascot. You can't do a Sasquatch. You can't do this. You can't do that." And then it's just like, this is so cringe. The kids have no fucking clue
Is it
what
more
their mascot.
Is it more cringe than Russell Wilson's Subway commercial?
Yes, Broncos country. Let's ride.
Yeah.
They're fucking dangerous. Yo, I love that video.
Yeah. And then all the kids are like, "Oh no, what do we do? What can we make a mascot with?" And they turn around and they say the Fremont Troll. And I'm like, "Oh, is that what your mascot had to be out of?"
What the hell?
Right.
Who's in charge of this stuff, man? Who's in charge?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Birds can be
crazy.
fired.
Yeah. But what we will do, though, I mean, now that we got that that ugly mascot out of the way, at least there is one good thing, and we'll end the show on a good note here. So the Buffalo Sabres have a team dog again. So we know last season Rick was brought in, the Newfoundland, and he was trained, and he's providing support to one of the veterans. And they're staying with that program again. And what they have decided to do this time around is they have adopted Nikki for the season, and she's an 8-month-old golden retriever, and there was a lot of pictures that were shown online with the Sabres website, as well as the NHL actually had some pictures, and we put them up on our page as well. But beautiful dog, number one. With what ended up happening is that they're going to train her, and she's going to be part of the team, and she's also going to be going to another veteran as well. So that's a great thing to see again. And what we'll do, of course, when we do the final edits for the show, we'll definitely have a full screen here. But just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm looking at behind the control here on my end, you can definitely see her, and good to see them doing that again. So that's a great thing.
Well, I will say this. Number one, she's going to somebody who would desperately need a dog, like a blind CNI dog and all that shit. And 2, she's going to die eventually in like 8 years.
What the fuck, Bobby?
What the hell's the matter with you, dude?
Dude,
What? It's dog.
We got a little too
You're a veteran, you asshole.
Oh, that's great.
Let's end the show just right there, end the show.
Oh my God. You heartless fuck.
Jesus, dude.
8 years, you give that dog 8 years, they usually last 15 to 17. You cruel fuck.
Right. Right. I was gonna say, when I had my lab, she lasted almost 12.
Have you ever met a Great Dane? Those dogs last less than 7 years.
Well, that's different.
This is a different dog, dickhead. Retrievers and labs last about 15 to 17 on average, usually.
Right.
I mean, look at her. She's terrified. I mean, she looks like she's like, where the hell am I?
She's looking like she's having a great time.
Camera. And you talk about giving it a low life status?
Like,
Don't go to any games, Bobby. Jesus.
Yeah.
Listen,
Hey, there's your mascot dog. It's going to be dead in 8 years, you
yeah.
asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, and then on top of all that, she gets given away to a veteran or something like that a year from now.
Oh, you better hope Adam doesn't get wind of this. He's going to kill you.
Yeah, he would. He
Yeah.
would.
Listen, my rant for that was not as bad as what I said about Rick Generetta a year ago.
Yeah, well, it's still along the line.
Yeah, seriously.
Have some compassion, you jerk.
Right. They're training the pup for the right reasons, so.
Yeah, they're training the pup for the right reasons, but it just based on it being an animal.
Just shut up while you're not ahead.
But is that dog a girl?
Bobby, you're done.
Do you have to know if the dog is a girl?
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'm pretty sure they're gonna mate with the other dog is Rick, right? Rick, right?
Well, maybe. I mean,
well,
unless they
I don't know.
neutered it.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Wasn't
probably.
there another dog named Rick, a black lab or something?
Unless they
No,
neutered
he
it.
was in Newfoundland, but he's already with his owner though at the end of last
Oh,
season.
okay.
So yeah,
Gotcha.
but it's all good. But good to the Sabres though. They're supporting a good organization. So what we'll do on that note, it was a quick hour. We're gonna wrap it up, and then we're gonna be on next Tuesday because we're gonna be flying out to Kansas City on Thursday. So with that being said, Julian, I know you have your show Mafia Talk that you've been working on. So you had some good stuff the other night too. So tell everybody where we can find you before we wrap up.
Thank you. Definitely appreciate it. It's Julian J. Mafia. I host a show called Mafia Talk, joined by my big cuz, Pedro Pizzi, man. Please tune in. We on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Mafia Talk, ABFP. Check me out. Doing a new segment called Mafia Moments. And I just chat with a couple Bills fans, man. I have my boy Jay Spence the King. He's another major podcaster, man. Number blessings to him, man. He blessed the show with his presence. I got another Sterling Furrow I'm releasing tomorrow night. Great interview with my boy Sterling Furrow. He hosts a show called The Intentional Grounding and a whole bunch more. I'm going to the game Sunday at Steelers, and I'm praying.
Nice.
I'm praying I could get an interview of Stevie Johnson. I'm praying. So cross your fingers for me, boys, man. I gotta connect to get to Stevie Johnson.
That would be must watch. That would definitely be must watch.
Yeah, so definitely tune in, man. Hopefully we can. I'm thinking about doing a live podcast Sunday. So man, early around 9-10. Tune in, man. Hopefully we got Stevie on the joint. So yeah, please tune in. Mafia Talk.
You got it. Andy, keep getting well. I know you're finally starting to feel better, so we're glad to have you back into the fold. And then Sean will have on next week during our trip. We'll do some video from that. But in the meantime, thanks to everyone for joining us. And of course, one thing that I will tell you, if our show looks a little different tonight, we did roll out some new graphics, a little bit of hiccups here and there, but we're in good shape still. So thanks for dealing with it. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you.
Buffalo After Dark is an H&H Studio production and is produced in partnership with Horns & Hooves Entertainment.